Hey, Will Rice. My name is Jared. I am your CJ for this upcoming year, and welcome to the Chief Justice Talk, O-Week 2020. Let's do this. We're going to start this off with, what does a Chief Justice do? My main job is to promote Rice's culture of care. More broadly, my role as a CJ is to act as a liaison between the A-Team, RUPD, Rice EMS, and student judicial programs, which I'll refer to as SJP in this slide, to maintain a safe and healthy environment here at Rice. I do that by upholding the rules of Will Rice, the Rice alcohol policy, and the student code of conduct. It's my job to inform you of all these rules, the consequences that come with breaking them, answer any questions or concerns you may have, and, when necessary, enforce college and university policies. So I'm going to pause this presentation to give you all a chance to put this number into your phones. This is the Justice Hotline. This is the number that you will be referring to for the entire year whenever you need to contact me. And on the next slide, I'll go into detail for the types of things you can contact me about. So again, I'm Jared, and I'm the CJ for Will Rice. You can also call me C-Rod if you want to. I live in New Dorm in the 3rd floor elevator suite, which is the suite on the elevator side of New Dorm, if there's any confusion there. Here's some reasons you can reach out to me. First, noise complaints. You can call or text the Justice Hotline to make any anonymous noise complaint. Just let me know where the noise is coming from, and either me or one of my AJs will go and take care of that. You can reach out to the magisters or RAs if you have an issue with another Will Ricer, but if you would be more comfortable with the student perspective on the situation, I'm available to help mediate those issues as well. Private gatherings need to be registered with me, which I'll talk more about later. You should notify me about emergencies around Will Rice, but only after calling RUPD and or Rice EMS. For non-emergent issues like smell complaints or property damage, reach out to me through the Justice Hotline. And keep in mind, I'm always around and on call 24/7. So before I go any further, I'm actually going to share a quick message from our very own Magister, Matthew Bennett.
Thanks, Jared. I just wanted to quickly go over a few things about self-governance within the college and at Rice University in general, and the role of the magisters and the chief justices within the college system. So all of you by now have seen the Culture of Care agreement that you all had to read through and sign. That document and other documents relating to student conduct here at Rice University, including the student code of conduct and things like the alcohol policy, are not just documents that were written by the administration to impose rules on its student body, but they're documents and rules that were written by the administration in conjunction with students. Students had a large and vital role in determining what the student code of conduct was, including the alcohol policy. So that type of self-governance and shared governance is very unique to Rice University and within the college system, and is very important to our culture. But in order to maintain that shared governance and self-governance, we require that students essentially enforce these rules upon themselves. One of the things that you'll find here is that the A-Team here at Will Rice College and at other colleges in general, myself and my wife and the RAs and Dale, the college coordinator, we are not here to enforce the rules. That enforcement of the rules is left up to you, the students. And in particular, it is up to your elected representative, the Chief Justice, Jared, and his chosen associate justices. By allowing yourselves to enforce the rules, we find that there's much more buy-in to the rules, and we find it works much better than if it was very top-down and the magisters and the A-Team were enforcing things. It's just not what the A-Team's role is. The CJ and the AJs have a very tough role, though. A lot of students can think of them as trying to ruthlessly impose these rules on the students and trying to stop all fun, but that's not really what they're doing. The way to look at it is not that they're here to enforce rules, but you really have to think of it as that the justices are here to ensure that the concepts of self and shared governance within the college system are able to continue. Because if the student code of conduct and the rules of our college society break down, then so does the concepts of self-governance and shared governance. And the university has to step in. And that's the last thing that the university or the A team wants to have happen. So please respect your CJ and your AJs. They have a really tough job, but they're here not just to break up parties. They're here to make sure that you, the students, can govern yourselves. Thanks.
These are your associate justices for the 2020-2021 semester. So one of my other main duties is to lead the Will Rice College Court, which is comprised of myself, 3 associate justices, and an ombudsman. We all work together to handle infractions of the Will Rice Constitution and bylaws, the Student Code of Conduct, and the alcohol policy. However, most of our day-to-day work involves responding to noise complaints. Each AJ will handle noise complaints on their respective floor. We have one AJ in Old Dorm, which is Michael, and Ben and Kevin and I live in New Dorm on our respective floors. For noise complaints and any other issues on non-AJ floors, those cases will be handled by me. Now we're going to talk about the role of the College Court. Any Will Ricer can refer a complaint to the College Court, and we will meet to choose how best to respond. We may just have a conversation with the person or issue a letter of warning. If the issue is more severe, we may hold a trial, in which case we will appoint an ombudsman to help the person under review navigate Will Rice's judicial system. You won't be going through it alone. Finally, depending on the severity of the issue, we may decide to refer it to SJP. Basically, our role as a college court is to resolve any issues that conflict with our community standards as a residential college. Direct, more serious violations of the Student Code of Conduct or the alcohol policy are usually referred straight to U-Court or SJP. Should this happen, keep in mind that I and the other CJs around campus have a very good working relationship with SJP, and I'm here to serve as your advocate and as a resource to help you navigate any disciplinary proceedings with U-Court and or SJP. As you probably already know, this year we will have a COVID-19 community court, which will be responsible for handling cases of people reported to SJP for violations of the Culture of Care Agreement. There's 11 panel members with 1 representative from each residential college. Will Rice's representative this year will be our very own Isabel Williams. If you have any more questions regarding the COVID-19 community court, please refer to her. We also have 15 public health ambassadors this year. The PHAs are responsible for the education of all students at Will Rice about safe health practices in response to COVID-19. Everybody above the line in this slide is living off campus, but still available as a resource. Everyone below is living in one of the 2 dorms with you. Now we're going to talk about the Student Code of Conduct. The Student Code of Conduct is different from the Honor Code. The Student Code of Conduct is basically the terms and conditions of being a Rice student. All Rice students agree to follow these rules when they become a Rice student. The code is enforced by Student Judicial Programs, SJP, and University Court, U-Court, and sometimes the magisters and CJs as well. You guys either will or already have met with SJP staff, and they'll explain their process more in detail. Again, SJP has a close working relationship with the CJs and magisters, and if you have any questions about that process, don't hesitate to text, email, or talk to me. Now we're going to move on to the alcohol policy. The policy was written as a collaboration between administration and students and is a comprehensive list of Rice's specific rules related to alcohol consumption on campus. I'm not going to sugarcoat it here. If you're under 21 and choose to drink alcohol, you are breaking the law. There's inherent risks associated with consuming alcohol while you're underage. And if you choose to partake in that kind of behavior, you need to be aware of the consequences you're liable to face. The alcohol policy distinguishes between beverages like beer and wine and what we call hard alcohol. Hard alcohol is defined as any alcoholic drink between 22 and 75% alcohol by volume, or 44 to 150 proof. The proof of an alcoholic drink is just double the percent of alcohol by volume. Because hard alcohol is more concentrated and inherently more dangerous than beverages with lower alcohol by volume, like beer or wine, the consequences you may face are more severe. Grain alcohol, which is any alcohol above 75% ABV, is extremely dangerous to consume and totally prohibited on campus. As you can see pictured below, we have a couple examples. On the left, we have vodka, which is considered hard alcohol. In the middle, we have rum, which is also considered hard alcohol. If you see Everclear anywhere, stay away. And next here, we have this chart to kind of help sum it all up. So we have, once again, we have soft alcohol, which is below 22% ABV, which includes beer and wine. We have hard alcohol, which is between 22 and 75% ABV. And then we have grain alcohol, which is anything above 75%.
So first, we're going to start with our definition of drink when we say that you've had one, two, or three drinks. So here you can see we have a conversion chart for what counts as one drink depending on the type of beverage. So as you can see, first we have an entire can of beer, which would be counting as one drink, and then a glass of wine. And then for beverages with a higher value of alcohol, it's going to be a smaller volume. So for things like liquor, it's going to be just a shot that counts as like a drink. And this is really important for when you go out with your friends or go out alone, for keeping track of the number of drinks that you or your friends have had. That might be information that's important later in case that they do get EMS. You want to be able to provide that information. Everybody's body reacts differently to alcohol, and thus everyone will have a different alcohol tolerance. For those of you who don't know, alcohol tolerance is measurement of how your body absorbs and processes alcohol. Your biological sex, your weight, your rate of consumption are all factors into what your actual tolerance is. I've provided a few visuals here for both men and women. So depending on your body weight and the number of drinks you had, this chart kind of helps give you a good idea of how inebriated you'll get based on how many drinks you've had. So a couple safe practices to typically try to follow when you are out drinking is to first try to only drink things you've made yourself. Obviously, if it's canned or bottled beverage, then that doesn't matter. But in cases where you're creating drinks or mixing drinks, it's important to try to only drink things that you've made. Don't let other people hold your drinks, especially in the age of COVID. It's important not to be contaminating anything or taking germs from other people. So if you leave your drink somewhere at a party or any event and you come back to it, I would suggest just throw that away, get a new drink, because you don't know, one, if someone touched that, which would spread germs, or two, if someone might have potentially put something in your drink that could sabotage you. And lastly, go into the night with a set plan with your friends. Don't just go out looking for, trouble. Definitely gather a couple of friends, decide what you're going to do that night, and, travel as a group and, go have fun.
So now we're going to talk about drinking games. So a drinking game is any type of activity that has drinking alcohol incorporated into the game or the punishments of the game. In the age of COVID-19, it's really important that we do not participate in any types of drinking games that could promote the spread of germs or viruses. So any drinking games that involve sharing cups, excessive drinking, property damage, or in general putting another student's safety at risk are not allowed, and if caught, the punishment will be very severe. At Rice and Will Rice, we pride ourselves on our culture of care. And this culture is reflected in the alcohol policy, which always puts student health and safety first. Amnesty provisions in the alcohol policy state that if a Rice student contacts RUPD or REMS for any intoxicated or impaired person, neither the caller nor the impaired individual will face disciplinary action. Amnesty does not automatically apply in cases where hard alcohol or other prohibited substances are involved, but it's worth noting that in situations like these, SJP will take a student's intent and proactive steps taken to ensure the safety of an intoxicated peer into consideration. The bottom line is, it's all about looking out for one another, and our policies here at Rice reflect that. No matter what, if you see someone who has had too much to drink or may be in medical danger, immediately call Rice EMS at 713-348-6000. This number might have already been provided to you in a different presentation, but if not, you have time to put it in your phone. I also want to say this. Please don't get caught up in whether it's personally worth the consequences to get medical help for a friend that's in danger, because that's already falling short of the college's core values and our culture of care. If you have a friend that needs medical attention because of alcohol or drug use, don't get bogged down by doing pointless mental calculus about whether or not to call REMS. If you see someone who needs help and for whatever reason do not call for help, this could result in severe consequences for putting someone else's health and safety in jeopardy. Asking for help is always the right thing to do for both the person in need and for yourself.
So if one of your friends had a little too much to drink one night but they don't have the symptoms of alcohol poisoning, which I'll be covering in the next slide. What you should typically want to do is, first of all, let them vomit if they are feeling sick. Let them get all of that out of their system, out of their body. Second, you want to try to get them some water or something to eat that's super carby, because that'll help with that process of getting them back. You also want to try to get them to bed, because if they're at that point, then their night is over. They shouldn't be drinking anymore. They shouldn't probably do anything else. They just need to get to bed. And lastly, you want to get them in a recovery position. That's pictured here. The most important part is to get them on their side so that if they do need to vomit at any other point in the night, that they're not facing up where they could potentially choke on the vomit. So you want them to be on their side so that it just all comes out easily. So if their condition's worse than what was described, then they might possibly have alcohol poisoning. Some ways to check is listed here. They might be super confused or just overall out of it. They might not be able to walk on their own. That's usually a good sign. Vomiting, especially if it's prolonged or turns into dry heaving. If their breathing pattern is irregular, that's something to pay attention to. If they're passing out or staying awake, unconscious, this is a pretty good indicator of alcohol poisoning. And damp or clammy skin, and then also slow responses. So their brain is just fried at that point. That's a really good sign of alcohol poisoning.
Now we're going to talk about beyond O week. Now, this might have already been communicated to you, but until further notice, campus is to remain dry even after O week. We don't know how long this will last, but I predict that it won't last that long. But until then, you do need to keep that in mind and follow the rules. Every year, some students engage in risky behavior once coming back, and every year, students are sanctioned by college courts and SJP for their behavior. If you choose to knowingly do things that are in violation of the rules, you run the risk of facing the consequences. It's like getting pulled over on the highway for speeding. You know the speed limit, and when you exceed it, it can't be helped if and when an officer gives you a ticket. It's my job to inform you of the rules, and in cases where a student violates those rules, I have to enforce them as well. I do want to communicate that there are plenty of ways to engage with the college that don't involve alcohol. There's tons of things around campus to do throughout the semester that don't involve alcohol at all. Now we're going to talk about private gatherings and public parties. Now I do want to remind you before I go any further that campus is dry until further notice, but it's still important to have this information for once campus does become wet again. So first we're going to talk about private gatherings, which are less than 5 people inside a host room. You can't be spilling out into public areas, or else it's no longer a private gathering. The host is responsible for all their guests. You must comply with the occupancy limits of the gathering's location. If it's in your room, you need to follow the rules of how many people can be in your room. And of course, you must comply with all the other rules that are referred to in the Culture of Care Agreement. If you do have more than 5 guests and alcohol is present, the private gathering must be registered with me. Now, if you do have more than 5 guests and alcohol is present, the private gathering must be registered with me. Here's how you register a private gathering. There's signs all throughout the college in the dorms, which show a poster with a QR code for registering your private event. All you have to do is use your phone to scan the QR code on one of the posters you see. Fill out the required info on the Google form. So this is what the posters look like. You'll see them throughout the college. They're very hard to not notice. And once again, you just scan it with your phone and register. So anything that does not qualify as a private party discussed on the previous slide is considered a public party, which must be registered with not only me, but also student activities. It also must comply with the occupancy limits. And if it's over 50 people, it's outright not allowed. Examples of public spaces at Will Rice are the hallways and the stairwells, the old dorm kitchen, the new dorm lounges, the new dorm balconies, and the quad. So once again, throughout the entire semester, you need to be referring to the Culture of Care Agreement if you have any questions regarding the rules on campus. If you have any questions about the rules, you can always reach out to me, any of the AJs, any of the PHAs, or Isabel. Remember that anytime you're around other people that aren't your roommate, you should be wearing a mask. Don't make decisions that will make others feel unsafe. Once again, our first priority at all times is the safety of all the students here. It's going to take all of us working together to make sure that we stay on campus this year. If at any point this semester you see someone violating any of the rules in the Culture of Care Agreement or doing anything that makes you feel less safe where you're living, you will be able to report them at sjp.rice.edu. Once again, guys, it's really important that you're following the rules of the Culture of Care Agreement. The stakes are very high, and things will go very bad very quickly if we're not holding each other as well as ourselves accountable. Moving on to noise guidelines. So as you can see, quiet hours on the weeknights are at midnight, and on the weekends, which is really just Friday and Saturday, it's at 2 a.m. So if anyone is ever making loud noises that are bothering you past these times, feel free to contact the Justice Hotline and we'll handle that quickly and accordingly. Since the majority of the courses are online this year, if there are cases where someone is making noise that is disrupting your studies or disrupting your class during the day, you are also able to contact the Justice Hotline, and we'll handle that on a case-by-case basis of whether or not we're going to handle that. In the cases that there are multiple complaints about the same event, RUPD will likely dispatch an officer to help address the situation. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. This is a reminder that if you do smoke, please make sure to do it in a designated smoking area outside. Don't ever try to cover the smoke detectors. It's a serious safety hazard and a violation of the Student Code of Conduct. Vaping and e-cigarettes are included in the smoking policy and also need to be taken outside if you're going to use them. Marijuana, weed, whatever you want to call it, they're all illegal in Texas. Consumption of any illegal substances is against Rice's Student Code of Conduct, and if you are caught, you will face the consequences. We're going to talk about building safety. Please make sure that you're always keeping your door to your room locked. If you see someone trying to get into the college that doesn't have a key or a swipe card, don't let them in unless you do know for sure that they're a member of the Rice community. A good question to ask someone who may not be a Rice affiliated person is, which college are you from? If the person answers with an answer like Rice, they obviously aren't aware of the residential college system, and that might be an indication that they're not a student here. Not everyone trying to get into the buildings here actually belong. Some of them are trying to get in for the wrong reasons. Lastly, here's the number for RUPD and EMS. It's the same number, kind of like 911 will direct you to the police or emergency medical services. I do want to note Rice police officers are actual police officers. Their main objective is to keep the campus safe. Your interactions with them should be respectful, and they're here to help. If you feel unsafe or see something that you think might be a violation of the law, you should always call RUPD first. All right, guys, that's the end of the presentation. Thanks for bearing with me. Once again, here's the contact info. We have the Justice Hotline, the number for RUPD, and then my personal information is also on here. If you have any questions about anything in this presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thanks again, guys, and I hope you enjoy the rest of O Week. Later.